So it's interesting. I look around me, I see in this world, and I see in myself, I see in everybody. We're all living in a conceptual reality that has no actual existence other than it just existing in a thought. And the thing is that it's not really like in a sense, like this is insanity. It's insanity to believe in something that isn't actually real. It's insanity to construct a reality in your head with thoughts and project that onto actual reality. That's insanity, right? That's not being true or real. But the thing is that there's a kind of collective conceptual framework in which we're all operating on. And so we don't think that we're insane because we look around and everyone else is the same, you know. Everyone else has... we're all living in like a collective conceptual framework. And so like what we call insanity is just people with a unique conceptual framework that is disconnected from the collective conceptual framework. I mean, the truth is that we don't actually know anything. And so we think that people that are insane, we think that they're insane because they've got a different model of reality in their head. Right, our collective model of reality is, you know what it is. Like, if you've been brought up in this culture, you've been conditioned with it. But what we call people with insanity is just they've just got a different story running in their head that isn't the same story as this collective, quote-unquote, normal one. But you see, it's still insanity because basically we are still constructing a story, still fabricating an imagined reality and projecting that, overlaying that onto the raw sensations that are appearing in consciousness. I mean, we don't know anything, but we come up with stories about what we think it is, and then we live in those stories. We come up with beliefs about what this kind of shit is, and then we live in that, and we think we know shit, and we forget that we actually don't know anything, you know. But because like we're brought up in an environment which has a kind of collective conceptual framework, then we just inevitably are programmed with this collective, this conceptual framework that everyone's on, because we're in that environment and everyone's acting within this perception, acting in this conceptual story, and we go along with it, and we just don't really question things for ourselves. We don't really verify what we're told. And the thing is that this is actually this can be very scary to kind of realize, because basically what's happening is you're realizing that everybody's in a state of insanity, and you're actually moving towards sanity. And of course what that's going to do is that, it's very rare to be in a state of sanity. And so there's, most people are in a state of insanity. So if you're sane in an insane world, then you're going to be perceived as the insane one. Because everyone that's insane, everyone that's operating on this collective conceptual framework, this story that they're overlaying onto reality, everyone that's operating on this thinks that is reality. So they don't know that they're actually projecting this story onto reality. So they just believe in this story that they're overlaying onto reality. They don't realize that they're constructing that, fabricating it and putting it on there. They just think it is reality. And so they think that whatever they believe in is reality, is true. And so basically this collective perception people think that that's normal, because you look around, you look at all the people, and they're all acting in the same kind of way. They're all behaving in the same kind of way. And so this is normal. Normal is like the majority, right? And but when you start to see that that's actually not true, and you move towards a state of sanity and realize that everybody's actually in their state of insanity, then everyone's going to think you are the insane one, because you're living in reality, not living in some story about reality. But of course, when you use language, you can only construct stories. Like, language is just a pointer. You can't, language doesn't hold the truth of your experience. Language only serves as a pointer. And so you can only construct stories with language. You can't do anything else with language but make ideas and stuff. And so if you're trying to communicate this state of sanity, the stories, the words that you use, the language that you use about this state of sanity is going to sound insane from the paradigm of the collective conceptual framework that everyone's operating in, the collective story that everybody's using to view reality, right? In that viewpoint, then your pointer towards sanity is going to sound fucking insane, because it makes no sense to this other paradigm, you know. And so, back to my initial point, which was that when you start to move in the direction of sanity, it's going to be scary, because you're going to be lonely, because not many people are doing this, and you're going to have so many doubts about yourself, because everyone's going to want to be dragging you back down to this state of insanity. And you're like, because you've come from this state of insanity, trying to, you know, crawl your way out of this, you're gonna have doubts about it. You're gonna, like, everyone's gonna be telling you like that what you're doing is insane, and you're gonna be like, fuck, is it insane? Like, oh, maybe they're right. But you have to trust your intuition here. You know, this is the hard thing, is that, you know, people might tell you like, oh, you've joined a cult, or like, oh, you've been brainwashed, or like, oh, don't be so like you're not being realistic, or you're whatever. People will tell you all this shit because they don't understand this state of not knowing, this state of sanity. They're so fucking engulfed in this collective paradigm, right? And so that's gonna be like, that's the difficult thing. Because you're gonna have a lot of doubts about yourself. You can be like, yeah. But the important thing is that you've got to be true to yourself and honest with yourself. Like, are you actually stepping into a state of sanity? Or are you just shuffling up content? Are you just moving from one paradigm to another paradigm? Are you just moving from the collective paradigm to a more kind of esoteric paradigm? Like, are you just switching up? Are you just switching up your kind of normal cultural viewpoint for a more spiritual viewpoint, right? You've got to be honest with yourself. This is about stepping outside of all viewpoints, stepping outside of all paradigms, all stories, all narratives, all fabrications in which you project onto reality. It's about stepping outside all that, not just moving from one to another. Now, the thing is that it actually may be helpful to move from one to the other. You know, it seems a little bit too hard to just go from this collective conceptual world and then straight into like a no concept about what the fuck anything is. Usually people are operating on the collective one. They got some fucking inkling that something's not right, and then usually they step into like a philosophical one, and then maybe a spiritual one. But you see, a lot of people get stuck there, you know. It's about moving beyond that as well. It's about having no kind of framework of what reality is. And you know, that's kind of hard, you know, because, but yeah, you know, like, anyway, I think you get the idea of what I'm saying. You've got to find out for yourself, you know. You've got to go at this alone. No one can do this for you. No one can tell you, like, no one can tell you what's real and what's true. Only you can find out for yourself. This is just about investigating your direct experience, investigating the nature of the sensations that are appearing in whatever this is, just the shit that's just here, you know, and not having any kind of labels or stories about what it is. And like, you know, this is not easy work, you know. You can have glimpses, but it's not easy work to lock it in, because we've got so many habitual patterns of our mind that just, you know, do this kind of shit, that just overlays concepts and labels onto reality. It's very habitual. We've been programmed that way. Anyway, I think that's all that I wanted to talk about. I don't even remember what the fucking intention was to make this video. Just, yeah, investigating your direct experience. You know, doing self-inquiry, asking yourself, who actually am I? And coming to terms with this experience now. Like, who is looking? Who is feeling? Who is hearing? Who is thinking? Who is it that sees? Who is the looker? I've had like very profound moments, and they don't last very long, but they're very profound, where this looker gets recontextualized. I'm no longer just like this little self that's like, you know, this story that I like constantly run in my mind of like, oh, I'm Jasper, I'm like this person, this is me, you know, this kind of subconscious story that's running in the back of my mind. I'm no longer like this normal conventional self that is looking out at the world. This looker gets recontextualized, and I'm no longer this like separate self. The self kind of vanishes, and what's looking is God. That's what it feels like. What's looking is God. I mean, that's the word that comes to mind when this feeling happens, you know, this kind of loss of self, and it's just you know, God is the one that's looking. Nature or existence is the one that's looking. However, I still do think that this is still a subtle sense of self. I think you can still go beyond this, because you're still just shuffling up content. You're switching this little small separate self to this big self, but it's still a self, and it's still some story you're having about reality. You know, the initial story is like, here's me, this little person with this story, with these past experiences, I'm this person. And then you switch to like, oh no, I don't exist, it's just God, I'm God, or whatever. And there's still a story you're overlaying, and like, but I still think it's a helpful stepping stone. And it's a vastly more spacious and freeing kind of story to have. And it's gearing more towards the truth as well. It's more in the direction of truth. But I still think you can go further. But I don't know. Like, I only have these glimpses occasionally. But it feels really freeing, and I just feel like I don't have to try or have to be anybody in particular to feel like adequate or whatever, you know. Because a lot of us operating in this perception that we're inadequate and we're not enough, and we have to do more to be enough, and we have to be somebody that isn't what we are now to kind of, you know, feel adequate in this world, to feel good enough. And you know, when that kind of paradigm drops away, it's very linked with your sense of self. And so when that paradigm drops away, your self drops away, and like there's no more striving. Like, this moment becomes so beautiful because, you know, it's all that you've got. This moment's all that you have. You know nothing else other than this moment. And when the stories about this moment drops away, it's so freeing to just notice the raw phenomena that's occurring in the moment. It's like being in a lucid dream where you feel like, oh shit, I'm in a lucid dream. I don't have to like this. I'm in a lucid dream. It's like a sandbox. It's like there's infinite possibilities, you know. But usually when you become lucid in a dream, the first thing that you do is you're just in awe of how real everything feels. You don't really want to do anything yet. You just want to like take it all in first. You're like, oh shit, I'm dreaming. And you're looking at your hands and like, fuck man, this feels really real. And you touch shit and it's like, this is really fucking real. But at the same time you realize that it's just a dream and it's not real. You know what I mean? It's like solid as a rock, real, but at the same time completely not real because it's just a dream. It's the same with reality. Anyway, that's all I've got to say.